Welcome, soul driven writers, to the Soul Writer Podcast. This podcast is designed for writers like you who have a burning desire to share their story and message with the world and make the biggest impact possible. I'm your host, Lauren Eckhart, bestselling author, ghostwriter, book coach, and the CEO of Burning Soul Collective. Here at the Soul Writer Podcast, we believe in the power of vulnerability and authenticity. Our mission is to inspire and empower you to write from the depths of your soul by showcasing other authors who have done exactly that. Through their journeys, you'll discover what it takes to write a book that truly resonates with readers and learn how you can embrace your own unique voice to live the writer's life that you've always imagined. So, gather your favorite writing tools, cozy up in your favorite spot, and let's explore the world of soul-driven writing together. This is the Soul Writer Podcast, where your passion meets purpose and the world awaits the magic that only you can create. Welcome to the journey. Welcome back to the Soul Writer Podcast. Our guest today is Dr. Emily Jacobs. Emily was a participant in our Soulful Author Journey program. She is also a mother, speaker, board-certified doctorate-prepared integrative nurse wellness coach, and thought leader. As the author of Live Your Life for You, Not Your Mom, Emily helps guide others through balance, boundaries, and recognizing toxicity. You can follow Emily at Dr. Emily Jacobs on Instagram and Facebook. Throughout this episode, we discuss what sparked Emily's interest in writing her book, how and why she completed her first draft in 30 days, and how the editing process increased her confidence in her book. We also recorded this episode at a really unique time, which was the day before Emily's book launches into the world. So you'll learn all about what it feels like the day before a book's release. Welcome. Today we have Emily Jacobs with us for the Soul Writer Podcast. Now, Emily, we're coming and doing the recording at a very special time because by the time you all are listening to it, Emily's book will have already been released. But as we're doing this recording, it is the day before her book launch, the day before it's released out into the world. So it'll be a really fun conversation about what someone experiences the night before their book is released into the world. So, Emily, thank you for joining us today. So happy you're here.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren, and thank you, listeners. Yeah, this will be fun for me too.
Like a celebration. I don't know. I feel like I'm in a party right now. It's because I remember. It's just, I don't know. I feel like it goes back and forth between, and you can talk about a lot more, between like the nerves, the excitement, the, oh crap, did I actually put everything into the book that I wanted to put into the book? Do I actually want people reading everything that I put into the book? What's it like for you?
Yeah, that basically summed it up. I feel like things are going to come out of my stomach. Yeah, I'm like super nervous. I'm very humbled. I'm really excited. I'm proud. And I never really realized you could experience all of those feelings all at once. There's like last minute things. And I'm trying to really dive deep into my soul and be like, does this really matter? Right? Because the more I worry about stuff, which I am such a like recovering anxiety addict, like I feel like it's just in my nature. I'm not recovering. That was a lie. It's still there. Yeah, we tuck it in, but it comes out all the time. So like literally even in this conversation, and I've done podcasts before, but my heart's racing and it's been racing like all day and everything's just been like beautiful too, all at the same time. Like any little thing that I think is just going to come crashing and burning, because I think that sometimes we go there. I got an extra like hour of time. And honestly, instead of doing the things on my to-do list, I went and played with my daughter because it's like one of our first snowfalls, which is wild to be in Michigan in January. And it's our second snowfall, but we haven't had one in a month or two.
That's amazing.
And it's just like, can we play in the snow? And I literally thought, well, what's this all for? If I gained an hour because things got rearranged in my favor, that I can't take 30 minutes to play with her. She's so excited. And honestly, it just brought me down. It brought me down into the realistic part of my launch is tomorrow. People are coming to celebrate me tomorrow. I've been celebrating, but like it's really official tomorrow. And there's so much love and support that I need to just almost sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride too, because I know myself and I'm going to miss out. And I think that's to look back, to hold your book, to share it with people. Yeah, I'm also super nervous. People are actually going to get to read it, which the point. But it was very vulnerable and open, and I also love that piece of it too. All right, so my book is about choosing to create a healthy relationship with yourself. And where that comes from is myself, which is a recovering people pleaser and perfectionist, and how I tell stories of my challenging mother-daughter relationship where I learned and discovered how to find hope through recognizing toxicity and learning how to set healthy boundaries despite and in addition to I can love her at the same time and be different from her, but I can also decide that I'm going to do something different for myself. And I think throughout my entire life, which talks about it in the book, there's a whole story on blame because I lived there. And I thought blame was serving me. And I was like, ooh, this is my story. It didn't do anything. Y'all know that. Blame actually just pulls us back into, I call it like the negative and not the positive. And when I finally realized that I had control over that too, and I was doing that to myself, that there was just only one way to get out of it, which was starting to take responsibility for who I am, what kind of life I wanted, despite my mom's opinion, despite my boss's opinion, despite my friend's opinion, and not in a mean or harsh way, just in a truly, like, this is me and this is how I want to live. And where it all came about too is now that I have two daughters of my own. So I don't know if we're gonna get there, but
Let's
that's
go
kind
there.
of okay, let's go. Let's just go there. So that's kind of why the book needed to come out now. I think we all just get this feeling where it's like, now's the time. And I just saw myself repeating some of the uglier versions of my mom. I saw it in me and I hated myself because I was like, why would I do that? I thought here I am trying to break the cycle. Here I am trying to, and that took a couple months to realize that, like, again, Emily, you have control over that. And so instead of being judgmental and mad, I recognize that it's happened again. And I really just try to like circle through, oh, how do I want to show up differently? How do I want to be the mom that I wish I always had? Again, not in blame, but in the, you didn't do this for me and I can do this now for my kids. So every opportunity that there's an awareness around that choice, I feel, and I say every opportunity because sometimes we don't sit and pause and think about it.
What's so powerful is just the generational aspect of it. And I think that's what's so important. We want to do better for our kids. And a lot of times we always hear like our parents are doing better than their parents for them, right? It's just ongoing. But what I love about like concept of your book specifically, it's like you said, really intentionally writing out what all of those things are, how to release the impact of those things on your life. First for you,
Yeah.
but then it's also like that example that you're able to set for your kids and you know what you're able to choose differently for them.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, and I'm really mad at myself because I wrote these lessons that I learned through that relationship and how I was able to take those lessons with gratitude and decide for myself what kind of life I wanted. So even a couple months ago, I was in a slump, right? As something happened, and it was a rough season, and I know why. I actually, I actually like almost manifested it to happen. I knew it a few months before. I'm like, I'm gonna crash in December. I just already know it. And it happened, but the thing is, I started getting mad at myself. I'm like, "What, Emily, you gotta go back to square one of your book and relearn these lessons." And I started getting really mad about that. And then I thought, all right, well, it can't hurt. I learned these before, so picked it up, and I started as I was kind of reading and editing too. I'm like, oh yeah, I did go get over that. And it was kind of I call it in the book like the Wonder Woman or the badass list, where it's like, oh, right, I did accomplish that, or I did get through that toxic relationship.
Yeah.
And it helped me. And what I would say for me is that the triggers don't stop. This is for me. I don't know if this resonates with anyone else, but the triggers seem to always be there, knocking at your door, seeing if you're going to let them in. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And sometimes we don't mean to. So they're there. They're there. And I feel like the more we experience them, it either gets easier, shorter, or less painful each time. So it's like one of those things happen. And for me, this last time, it was actually painful because I was so mad that they were back again. I thought I'd healed myself, but it did move through quicker. It was for me, so the pain was still there, but the quickness, I'm like, oh, that was like a week or two. That was really fast. Like I thought it was going to be the month of December or something like that. So take into account that if you've been there before and you've gotten through something before, then that trigger's just there to see, okay, well, did you really learn from that? And maybe you can move through it a little faster.
We've talked about that before. Every time this happens, an author will write a book helping other people with something specific. And then it's like their life comes up where it's like, okay, now's your chance to actually put this into practice. Is this effective? Is it helping you? Because it'll help other people. This is your chance to really verify if this is everything you wanted to put out into the book before it's out into the world. And it's powerful.
Yeah, that totally happened. That was probably early December. I was like, oh, I can't put this out. All I'm doing is yelling at my kids, and I'm super irritable, and I do not like myself right now. It took a little bit of time, but because sometimes you have to live with something. You have to like sit in it a little longer and not try to push it through or shove it down. I think it's just important to be like, I just kind of off. And I'm not going to try to push this anywhere. I'm just going to feel off and see, maybe I just need to feel this for a minute.
I really want to talk about, because what I love about working with you from the beginning with your book, how open you were with, this is what I'm experiencing throughout this. I love that about you. Let's talk about that, because I feel like, again, going into the whole, oh, I shouldn't be feeling like this or feeling this way versus, hey, this is just part of it when you're getting ready to do something that you've never done before. And so let's put this in perspective. January 23rd, 2023, today. When did you first think about writing a book versus when you first took that?
All right. Yeah, no, I love this story because this is the stuff that nobody really gets to see unless we do like behind the scenes. But this is the truth. I was not born an author. I was not going to be an author. My whole life I'm like not a writer. Okay. So just this was the Emily that was feeding herself that in her brain. My brother, on the other hand, is phenomenal, beautiful author, but he's not an author, but he should be. But here's the thing. So I knew even as a young kid, I loved writing. And so I wrote in journal entries all the time. Anything that came up, I would write. Granted, my mom used to read them, so they were very much proofread for her. That was my mom. So then when I got older, I was like, well, should I write this as if someone might read it? Or should I have a journal that's like, no one can read this one and I'll burn it type of thing? So anyway, apparently I was writing, and I was writing like just kind of soulful, deep things of things I was going through. And I actually like always intended that someone would read it someday just so that they would know me. So I actually did write it as if someone might open it up. Right? And then I had, anytime I would talk about stories about my mom, it was quite entertaining because I think that's how I healed. I would make them funny because I'm like, ha, let's laugh about what we went through. It just would come up because it was a very tense and challenging relationship that maybe that's just how I coped with it. I was sharing stories, but random people, or I would be at an appointment or I'd be at a massage and I'd just be rambling my mouth and they would say, you should read a book about that. There's a lot of great stuff same thing. People would find that funny, or people would find healing in that. And I would just roll my eyes like, you guys are insane, that no one's going to read this, right? So, but something in me, then after my first daughter was born, I'm like, remember those like 3 people that were like, you should write a book? If I was like, no. After my first daughter was born, there was something in me that was just like, I didn't love my job at the time too. And I'm like, there's something bigger in me that needs to get a message out or needs to do something or teach something, or that was always in my background anyway in my professional life. So long story short, there was like a burning desire for something else. I didn't know I'd be an author. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I did just start I had a 1-page document, 8x11, that like, these were the things I would kind of about, and it all had to do with choices and awareness. About like how you have the decision, you have the responsibility to choose differently if you don't like something, right? It's on you. And so I wrote like a couple little notes, and that sat as a 1-page, just brief note document for 7 years. And like maybe once every quarter, maybe I'd be like, what about that book thing? Maybe I should add, what would I add? Or I even blocked time at one of my jobs anytime it got like boring, I had my list of things like what I would do to fill the time if I had free time at work. And I'm like, go back to my book. But it never went past 1 page. And that's the crazy thing. I started at the end of 2022, middle of 2022. I decided to start investing in myself, whatever that looks like. I'm like, I don't know what that looks like. So I hired a business mentor which Lauren and I are familiar with together, which is how I met Lauren, which is amazing. But a business mentor, because I'm like, I'm going to start my own business. I really want to help people and coach women and help people like live lives they truly love and really teach them some of these lessons I've learned and coach at the same time. And this whole past year, that's where it all came about, is that these women were talking about their mother-daughter stories. And I would just throw in a question like, so do you feel that a lot of your negative self-talk comes from words that your mom used to say? Just throw in these questions. And they were like, yeah, how'd you know that? I'm like, that was my mom too. And I would be open with them. I'm like, can I share a story? Was your mom like this? Let me guess. Did it do this to you? And it was just really interesting. I think just even that, knowing that maybe these words could help other people. At the same time, I was struggling with my two daughters, being like, I don't understand, like why it's almost as if the book needed to be written for me to read again. And it also needed to be written for the other daughters of the world that were struggling. And then it also needed to be read by my daughters someday so that they knew I was trying. Like I really was trying for them this whole time.
Goosebumps. Goosebumps thinking about that. I love that. That's beautifully said. So when you decided now's the time, what did that look like for you? How did that feel, first of all, when you're like, this is actually happening?
Yeah, it felt like there was nothing that was going to stop me. It felt like this is it. This has to happen. And it was so weird because I'm a wishy-washy, indecisive person. So when something is that strong, I'm like, I mean, it can't hurt. Like
Did you wake up like that? Or did it just feel like
No.
accumulation and then like suddenly like, was it like just a light bulb or like a thought all of a sudden?
Yeah, I think because of all the little voices from like the women I was coaching, plus what I was going through. And then, like I said, when we open our hearts to receiving something, and I didn't intentionally do that, but I invested in myself with something that I was like, oh, I'm going to invest and put money into something. I have to follow through. And I started in that mentorship program. And I'm not sure if I got the email from you or we got connected somehow. We got to look back on that. 'Cause I'm like, what? There's someone about writing books and they help people. I signed up for your newsletter and then you did these free webinars. And I'm like, oh, so this company's going to walk someone through the entire process. And I just was like,
does this happen?
is for real? And I literally was like, again, can't hurt. I guess I'm getting a sign because I kept getting these little hints that I'm repeating myself over and over again in some of these coaching sessions, or I'm hearing the same challenges. And it was almost like that serendipitous, like, okay, these people at least would probably want to read about it. My daughters, it was for them, it was for me. And then when your email came through right after I signed up for your program, which I'm like, I guess I'm investing in another program because it all made sense to me at the time. It was like the stars aligned because I was open to saying, I guess this is it. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to sign up and we'll just get this thing done and it'll be amazing. Then you wrote back or something like, oh, here's the sign up for your 30-day writing challenge. And I was like, well, I mean, in my mentor in my business group, this is what's so funny is that she had just challenged us to a 30-day goal of whatever we wanted. And I'm like, I guess I'll write a book, right?
Knock out 2 challenges with one.
Yeah, it sounds about right. I was like, yeah, it was insane. My business mentor says I have to do something for 30 days. And I signed up for this program. I'm like, I think I'm actually going to do it. Now, I will remind people, it's not like I wrote my entire book in 30 days. I wrote the first draft. I got all the chapters and I aligned it. I filled it with the stories that I loved. But it was messy and imperfect. And I knew I would clean it up later. I just needed to finish the goal. And one thing I do want to mention too is modifying goals. This is what I coach people on. Yes, it's okay. It's okay to like push, especially when it gets challenging, but remember too what the purpose of everything is, right? And the alignment. And so that's something, again, I would learn differently is that I placed things I probably shouldn't have, which was time with my kids, my husband. Like I got knee deep into it because I was really excited, which again, nothing wrong with that either. But after this whole like pushing so hard after 6 months, I mean, in a beautiful way, my husband's like, welcome back to the family. Because my brain was like in a cloud, which again is not a problem, but just remember are you putting the other things that you still value at that same priority? Are you able to, I don't love the word balance all the time, but carve out intentional time where it's like, this is
No.
not my book time, Emily. This is time with your kids. So
Yeah.
I would, any spare second, I'm like, I gotta run back up. I gotta go do the thing. Oh, and so just making sure that your other things are intentionally still, like it's still working. Sometimes we have to move our goal and move it a little bit because it's not feeling as intentional. So that's what I would always be like, if 30 days, you get 3/4 of it done in 30 days, be excited about that too.
There's two things I want to hit on with that. Number one is just the fact that you did move the book writing as high, though, on your list as equal to family, but it was up there. And that's something
Mhm.
that I feel like people need to look at once they decide now's the time. Did your value of writing that book move up at all? Because it does need to shift if you're actually going to invest the time and the energy in doing it. Because other things will move. It doesn't have to be your family per se. Like you said, you need to be very intentional there, but still, what else can shift, especially for a short time? The other thing that I really love that you pointed out was yes, you wrote your book in 30 days, but it was the very raw, messy first draft in 30 days. Because it was one of my biggest struggles with even putting out like a 30-day writing challenge, is because I don't believe in writing the book per se in 30 days. But it's more of developing those habits and the consistency to actually make it happen. Knowing it's not going to be perfect. It's just getting as much of it out of here onto the paper as possible. So I love that you pointed that out. And with that, what I would really love to hit on is how that shaped for you. Like, how did you get it to the point where you're like, okay, it went from messy to something that I'm proud of. Like when it felt final, because that's a hard thing to release.
When I did that those 30 days and I got as much as I could out on paper, it did start like it did start fading towards the end. Like I was not writing as deep as I was at the beginning, I think, because my energy levels. So yeah, I was actually excited to dive back in. So then that second go through was actually really fun because I could really spend, I think I spent a couple days with each chapter. Now I still stayed with, so my I'm a planner. So I woke up an hour and a half before my family so I could just focus on that. And then I spent about like an hour and a half in the morning and then maybe an hour somewhere else in the day if I could find it, tried to carve that out. And even if I was tired and even if I was whatever, I just pushed through with writing, which again is not, sometimes we have to listen to our bodies and our brains aren't that creative. So there was times where I'm like, I'm going to definitely have to go back to that chapter. It's
Yeah.
like I just wrote it while the kid was trying to nap in the background, but not napping.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the second one was actually really fun because I was trying to like really clean it up. And then I went through the process of looking for an editor because I knew that second investment, and I'm going to call it a second investment, right? Because hiring a company to help walk you through is, I tell everybody now, it's essential. Like there's no way I could have done this without learning all the intricate details that your company has taught me. And but like none of them are like rocket science, but that would have taken me years to figure all that stuff out, where you have it so nicely crafted in these modules that I can come back to anytime. And the second part was looking for the editor. And honestly, I had a connection with my editor off the bat and I didn't look any further. I loved the communication style the best because it was, she just felt, I felt really heard. And so hired somebody. So that was the second investment, which I think was just absolutely awesome because now you have somebody else that's done this, does this for a living, and is like, let me help you also make it beautiful. And she does not, like, your editors don't write your book, right? Which they look at it and they say, they just remind you of your intentions. They look at the developmental piece, they look at the flow, they look at the wording choice, and they make suggestions. And that's what I tell people too. I'm like, they're not going to like go and rewrite it, which was also my okay, when we got to the proofreading phase, like, I can't read this thing again. I think I'm nope, can't do it. So,
There's a little weirby there, but I do want to just reiterate that particular part. Like you will reach a point with your book when you're sick of it. So you have done the right steps in combing over it over and over again to make it better. And it's okay to get to the point where you don't like it anymore and you're sick of it. It's okay. But
do
you will
recommend,
fall
like,
in love with it again.
I 100% agree with you. Like, I needed to put it down. I needed to breathe. I needed to breathe. The book needed to breathe. We both needed to breathe. And every time I gave it to my editor, which was really awesome, whatever time frame, 2-3 weeks, whatever the turnaround, whatever the time frame is, that I took for breathing time. And so I never looked at it because I was like, well, that's her job right now. She's looking at it. I will look at it when she sends it back to me. But I then did look into other things, like what is just as like curiosity, like what's formatting, what's the PR stuff all about, what are the launch parties all about. So I started diving into like the other stuff just to get my brain off of the book. I was looking into more of the other types of things. So I was always actively doing something, but it wasn't the reading and editing. But I will tell you by the proofreading part, and my editor would probably kill me for saying this. I just glanced at it. I'm like, she's pretty good. She's probably good. Do not do that.
Don't do that. Good advice.
It has costed me money for doing that. So don't do that because, again, nobody's perfect. And what you read on a computer screen sometimes can be very different than when you're reading it on paper. As much as you don't want to waste paper, I would recommend printing it out, especially in the proofreading phase, because there's like a comma or a period, and you think you caught it, and you think the other person caught it, and how many times have you read it? But the other thing too is you kind of memorizing pieces of your book, so you don't really notice those things. When I held the book in my hands, I caught the error. I like literally, because I'm a physical book person, not an ebook. So I finally got my book and I was reading it like a reader, and I'm like, oh, interesting. There's like and then little things that, anyway. So,
but it's a good point. That's why it's so important. I know we had just talked about this with the whole, pausing long enough to really ensure that this book is exactly what you want it to be. It is different seeing it in a Word document. It is different in a PDF. It's different seeing it in the ebook. It's different seeing it when it's in your hand. It's so important to be able to hold it before the rest of the world holds it as well. Because I know this. Like, I did the same thing when I first put out my books. It's so hard to describe unless you're in it. But I see it with new authors all the time. It's like, suddenly you have this momentum to write the book and you're so excited, you're getting it done, that there's almost this urgency flow that then gets created. It feels like all of a sudden the most important thing in the world is for it to be out because now you're taking these steps. And there's all these reasons. Like I remember, and I've heard a couple of other authors, like being so scared that someone else was going to take like your story idea. So you want to hurry up and put it out there because you're already working on it. What other advice in that way of everything that you've gone through that you would recommend to someone else?
The what not to do.
That's always a good list. The top 5 things of what you wouldn't do.
It's like I would say take your time, but like that doesn't align with you. It doesn't align. So top things that I would learn that I would pass on to someone else is number 1, hire your company, but we don't have to promote you right now.
Thank you.
Hire somebody, right? Hire somebody that is in line with you, that is like-minded with you, that will help you get to that achieving point, because it's a lot. There's just like a lot of intricate little details that you don't need that stress. You can literally have someone help you through that. So number 1, it will be the best investment of your life because you'll get your book published. Number 2 is set, I don't know if I still want to say realistic goals, but set some goals. You will need to carve out the time and the intention around it, right? And we definitely won't say take your time with it because I am not one of those people that knows how to do that. But listen to the coaches. If the coaches give you a timeline that you don't like, it's fine to question it and challenge it, but then just ask them why. What mistakes have other people made? Because even if you're not going to listen, because I didn't completely listen to that, and that's fine. I'm just super stubborn like that. But again, I will live to tell, and also I won't do the same mistakes the next time. It also won't look the same the next time because I've already learned most of this. So it's like being new at a job or being new as a mom or being new at something. It's a little hairy the first time, but it was totally doable. When I looked at this, I'm like, oh, wait, if I did that, I could do whatever. This is doable. I hear people that are like, oh, I've always wanted to write a book. The minute they say that, I'm like, all right, when are we going to talk on the phone? Because first of all, we have to talk because you can. They feel like they can't do it. When will I find the time? Which Lauren and I, you both know this. You don't find time. You create it. And so I told you I'm super stubborn. I did not slow down at my job. I have 2 toddlers. Like I did not slow down life, which I crashed. I should have chosen some things to kind of let go of for a few months. So I just think that's a great piece of advice. If there's a way to hire a little extra help, just like a mother's helper in the neighborhood 1 day a week for just 2 hours, things where you can clear your mind and get that space. Have open communication if you have a spouse or a partner or someone that you can trade time. There's times where I would say to my husband, I don't think they need 2 parents right now. Can I, right? Like we talk about the weekend. What does the weekend look like? We have a blank slate some weekends, which I know is not every family. Or maybe we have all day Sunday. Do you need 2 hours? Because I need 2 hours. Like, where do we make this work? So having those conversations with how do I make it work for me instead of I have to find the time. That's how it worked for me. I thought, well, get up early. That can't kill a person to wake up a little earlier. I used to wake up super early in my corporate job, so I might as well try that for a few months.
And again, it's temporary. It's a short
Yes.
time. It's not saying you're doing it for the rest of your life. It's temporary.
Yeah. It's so true. Yeah.
As we wrap up, I want to bring it back. I feel like there's so much we could dive into because it has been such an amazing learning experience for you. And we've said this from the beginning, like from us working with you, what we have loved is that you're like, okay, yeah, like you take everything in and you're like, I'm going to apply this. Like it's the best thing because you want this to truly be a reflection of your original idea and the message and the calling that you have. It's been such a joy to work with you for that reason. But bringing it back to the day before your book launch, because like I said, I want to bring you back and talk about it like a year after your book launch. Bringing it back to this moment. What is one thing that you want yourself to remember about this time? And then number 2, what's your vision for the other side once your book is out?
Nobody can see this, but I literally have tears in my eyes. So what I want for myself, and thanks for reminding me that the book launch is tomorrow, because now I feel like throwing up again.
I'm glad we had a distraction for 40 minutes prior.
Now I'm the master distractor here. What I really want for tomorrow is, I think I just want to really open my heart to feel all the love of the people that are supporting me, to drown out any noise of anything that doesn't support that. And that's okay. Like what I think of when I don't feel supported by somebody that you think you might have or you should have is that maybe they're not ready to receive that message. And so I just want to have an open heart and say, I didn't do this for me. I didn't. And, but yet I need it. And then I know my mom is with me and she passed away 3 years ago, but she's been my biggest supporter my whole life, as challenging as we have had it. And I write that in there. It's not the relationship either one of us wanted, right? But this whole time, every time I was going to write like a really crazy story, like the craziest of crazy stories, I'd be like, Mom, I'm going to write that story when we went wedding dress shopping and you had a tantrum like a 2-year-old, right? Okay, because it fits the book. This shows what happened. I was like, oh God, my house is going to burn down. And every time I was like, the holy crap, right? And karma, right? I'm like, how could I possibly do this to her? No, there was like a butterfly that went by or a bird on my windowsill or just honestly, I could hear her in the background like, it's all right. It's almost as if she knows the big picture. She knows what's about to happen to me. And like, I'm seriously about to cry. My mom's not a deep person, but somehow in this spiritual world, she's like, oh, honey, watch out because you've got a message and someone's going to hear it and it's just going to help so many people. And that is the thing that she taught me the most, is that use your gifts to help people. And like, that's why I'm going to cry because like, I did not know I was going to feel this supported by my mother who passed like literally 3 years ago. I did not know I was ever going to feel this much support from her. Sounds crazy, but
beautiful.
Yeah, so for the future, I don't know. Ask my mom. She knows. She sees something bigger, but honestly, I just hope that it helps people that want to hear and want to read and really want to open their hearts up to learning how to literally create a better relationship for yourself, whether it's challenging with your mom, your dad, your spouse, your friends, your whoever. Maybe there's something in this book that you can resonate with, like issues with my boss. Like it really could be any relationship. It does not just have to be your mom. Of course, I used our stories, but really there are things holding you back from living a life you really want. And one of the number one things is you. That's like so hard to say that, but what is it that you want, and what can you start learning to take accountability to move yourself forward?
Thank you so much for tuning in to another inspiring episode of the Soul Writer Podcast. I hope today's conversation has ignited a newfound passion and determination in you to write from a place of vulnerability, authenticity, and soul. Remember, your story has the power to make a significant impact in the world. And by sharing your unique voice, you're contributing to the tapestry of human experience. So go forth, embrace your soul-driven purpose, and let your words transform the lives of your readers. Be sure to subscribe to the Soul Writer Podcast so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes, where we'll continue to share valuable insights and inspiring stories from fellow authors. You can also join our community on social media to connect with like-minded writers and share your own journey by looking at Burning Soul Collective. Until next time, keep shining your light, and remember, your story matters. Your words have power, and the world needs the magic that only you can create. This is the Soul Writer Podcast, signing off for now. Right on, my friends.